It's election night here in Korea, a little past 2 in the morning here in Seoul. You're watching our election coverage for the 21st presidential election. I'm Lee Jae-myung. As vote counting stretches into the early morning, we do have a projected winner, the Democratic Party of Korea's Lee Jae-myung. Let's go over to our correspondent Shin Ha-young, who has been following the DP's Lee Jae-myung campaign. Ha-young, Lee delivered his victory speech just moments ago. What did he have to say?
Well, Jung-min, I'm now in Yeouido in front of the National Assembly, where projected winner Lee Jae-myung of Democratic Party of Korea delivered a speech addressing the public. And in his remark, he said that his top priority would be overcoming what he describes as an insurrection that has continued since the martial law declaration in December. And he stressed that presidential power comes from the people, and also emphasized his commitment to restoring the economy and improving people's livelihoods. And among his pledges, he called for a peaceful and coexisting Korean peninsula. He closed his speech with the words, "A great Republic of Korea built by great Koreans." Earlier today, he had remained at his home in Incheon's Gyeongdo district, but later left to visit the party's main headquarters to thank party members. He then came here to Yeouido. The DP held a public event here from 10 p.m. Tuesday at an outdoor stage where party members and supporters gathered to watch the vote count together. And while the event has now wrapped up, a large crowd still remains at the site. That's all for this hour. Back to you, Jung-min.
All right, that was our Shin Ha-young reporting live from Yeouido. Now to the PPP's headquarters. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon is on the line. Do-yeon, has Moon-soo delivered his concession speech?
Jung-min, just a few moments ago, People Power Party candidate Kim Moon-soo came here to the party's headquarters across the street from the National Assembly to officially accept defeat in the election. Well, when he got in front of the media, he first accepted the defeat and then congratulated his rival Lee Jae-myung on the win. He offered his thanks for the support he received. His message was short, and after wrapping up, he didn't take any questions but shook hands with the camp members and the media and left the briefing room. The media had been waiting since early in the evening for Kim to emerge and concede defeat. At about 30 past midnight, the reporters in the Situation Room were notified that Kim would be coming to the campaign headquarters to face the media, but after arriving at around 1:20 a.m., he waited for Lee Jae-myung to finish his victory speech down the street. As for the campaign's election night, with the exit polls showing a double-digit gap, the mood inside the PPP camp remained subdued and somber throughout the campaign, still grappling with the fallout from the martial law declaration and the impeachment of former President Yoon Suk-yeol. Tried to carefully balance his message so far, aiming not to upset Yoon and the party's loyal base, while also reaching out to undecided voters by creating some distance from Yoon, but it hadn't worked at the end. Kim had trailed his rival Lee Jae-myung throughout the campaign, sometimes in double digits in polls, and while the final count isn't in yet, he managed to narrow the gap, avoiding a double-digit loss in the end.
Our political correspondent Kim Do-yeon, thank you. Now, while we have a clear winner, ballot counting continues until all the votes are counted. Our Park Go-nu is standing by at one of the counting stations. Go-nu, how's it looking there?
Yes, Jung-min, as you mentioned, I'm standing at one of the ballot counting stations nationwide, set up at Seoul National University in southern Seoul, one of the 254 across the country. And as you mentioned, we do seem to have a clear winner after 5 to 6 hours of counting. But as the counting rate still stands at around 90%, the process continues. And the process here has been running smoothly and orderly. Even there has been snack time at around midnight for the people counting to have a break. However, in some places there were minor disturbances as a few observers shouted that the process seemed suspicious or that the CCTV inside wasn't working properly. Police intervened to restore order and allow the counting to continue. The National Election Commission expects the counting to be completed by 6 a.m. Wednesday, and at 7 to 9 a.m. the NEC is expected to confirm the winner. Right afterwards, the winner will be able to start his presidential term. Now, about the 8 key sections, how the counting works briefly. First, after ballot boxes were transported to counting stations under a police escorted with election observers, they were checked for any issues. Then the boxes were opened and ballots were neatly organized. Then they were fed into a sorting machine that would automatically classify them by candidate, which was introduced in 2002, which significantly sped up the process. And the machines aren't connected to any network, making hacking them impossible. Classified ballots are known to be manually checked in this election. The ballots are then manually checked once more to filter out any invalid votes, and it then goes through 2 final rounds of verification. And finally, the announcement by the official commissioner takes process.
Now, what is being done to ensure transparency throughout the ballot counting process?
Yes, so a total of 70,000 personnel have been deployed to ensure transparency, especially as there has been some speculation of electoral fraud. Personnel includes election observers, 6 from each party with the candidate, 3 for each independent candidate. Police authorities raised the national emergency level alert to the highest cut pool from 6 a.m. this morning nationwide, enabling full mobilization, including special security forces outside counting centers. And the National Fire Agency has been mobilized in case of emergencies as well. And that's all I have for you now. Back to you, Jungmin.
All right, Konu, thanks for the latest. Now, let's go over to our Pei-Eun-ji once again at our election wall for the latest on the election results. Eun-ji, give us updates.
Sure, Jungmin, the voter turnout for this election reached almost 80%, the highest in 28 years. This shows just how many people made efforts to be engaged in democracy, especially after the country went through 6 months of turmoil sparked by a failed martial law attempt. Much of the votes have now been counted, so let's take a look at the exact numbers. As of 1:30 a.m., more than 80% of the votes have been counted nationwide, and Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung is now projected to become the next president of South Korea. So far, Lee has earned around 48%, followed by People Power Party Kim Moon-soo with 42.9% and Minor Reform Party Lee Jun-seok with 7.7%. Now let's break this down by region. First off, let's start in Seoul, a battleground region, as this is the most populated area of the country with a lot of independent voters that do not lean toward either the Democratic or Conservative Party. So let's take a look here. Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung is in the lead by taking more than 46% of the votes there, followed by Kim Moon-soo with 43%. Next off, Busan, a conservative stronghold. More than 90% of the votes have been counted there. Kim Moon-soo is in the lead by taking more than half of the votes, followed by Lee Jae-myung with nearly 40%. Daegu, another conservative stronghold part of the country. Kim Moon-soo is clearly in the lead here by taking more than 70% of the votes, followed by Lee Jae-myung with around 20%. In Incheon, around 70% of the votes are in. Lee Jae-myung is in the lead by taking more than half of the votes here. Kim Moon-soo following with around 40% of the votes. Next, over in Gwangju, a liberal stronghold, more than 85% of the votes are in, and Lee Jae-myung holds a clear lead by taking almost 85% of the votes in Gwangju. Over in Daejeon, this is a battleground region. As of 1:30 a.m., Lee Jae-myung is slightly in the lead by taking 47.6% of the votes, and Kim Moon-soo following closely behind with 42.2%. In Ulsan, this would normally be seen as a conservative stronghold, but surprisingly seems to be a tight race there, with Kim Moon-soo earning 48.9%, followed by Lee Jae-myung with 41.8%. In Sejong, now this is a region where Lee Jae-myung has vowed to transform into the country's administrative capital, and Kim Moon-soo also pledged to build a second presidential office there. So let's take a look there. Lee Jae-myung is in the lead by taking more than half of the votes, followed by Kim Moon-soo with around 34% of the votes. Moving over to Gyeonggi-do province, this is where both Lee Jae-myung and Kim Moon-soo served as the governor in the past. So let's see who's in the lead. More of Gyeonggi-do province voters have voted for Lee Jae-myung, who's taken more than half of the votes, followed by Kim Moon-soo with around 40%. Now over to Gangwon-do province, Kim Moon-soo is slightly in the lead by taking almost 48% of the votes, followed by Lee Jae-myung with 43.7%. Now let's go over to the central part of the country, Chungcheongbuk-do province. This is an important region to look at because it's considered a swing region in South Korea's presidential elections. Candidates who gained more votes in the Chungcheongdo provinces were not always but often elected as the president of South Korea. So let's take a look here. Lee Jae-myung is slightly in the lead by taking more than 46% of the votes, followed by Moon-soo with almost 45%. And in Chungcheongnam-do province, another crucial swing region, Lee Jae-myung is also in the lead by taking almost 47%, Moon-soo with 45% of the votes. Moving over to Jeollabuk-do province, traditionally a liberal stronghold, Lee Jae-myung is outperforming Moon-soo by taking more than 83% of the votes. Jeollanam-do province, another region with many liberal voters, Lee Jae-myung again taking the lead with more than 86% of the votes, followed by Moon-soo with a little more than 8%. Next, in Gyeongsangbuk-do province, this is a conservative stronghold. Moon-soo is in the lead by taking more than 65% of the votes, following Lee Jae-myung with 25%. Gyeongsangnam-do province, Moon-soo again is in the lead by taking more than half of the votes here, followed by Lee Jae-myung with almost 40%. Last but not least, over in Jeju, 77% of the votes have been counted here. Lee Jae-myung is also in the lead by taking more than 55% of the votes, and Moon-soo more than 30% of the votes. So it appears that Lee Jae-myung has won the 21st presidential election, becoming the next president of South Korea. But stay tuned as we will be bringing you the final results on this election later on. Jungmin?
Sure, Eunji, you sure will. Do keep us posted. Voters in the country voted all day, stopping by at polling stations to exercise their rights. An Song-jin went out to hear their voices.
The 21st presidential election has come to an end. From 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, more than 14,000 voting stations nationwide, including this one in Sadangdong, Dongjakgu, Seoul, were open. Starting early in the morning with the older members of the population showing up as soon as the polling stations opened, to families with young children, throughout the 14 hours of voting, people continued to show up to cast their ballots, right up until the last minute before polling stations closed.
This is my first vote ever, and I'm proud to be participating in it. I would like them to work on making Korea a better country to live in.
Now that I've finished voting, I'm going to go to work right away. I hope someone honest becomes the president.
Our economy is going through a difficult time right now, so I hope the new president can boost our economy domestically and internationally, and also improve people's livelihoods.
After they headed out of the polling booths, many were seen taking pictures in front of the polling station with a ballot stamp on their hand. This shows that a lot of Koreans are participating in an I voted movement. There are also these kinds of certification sheets with art or characters on them, where people can get stamps to show that they voted. Voters came to exercise their right to vote in hopes of electing a president who will lead South Korea through a pivotal period. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
For insights on the election, attorney An Jun-sung joins us live. Lawyer An, thank you for coming on so early in the morning.
Thank you.
So we now have a clear picture of who the winner is. Lee Jae-myung of the DP is highly projected as South Korea's 21st president. How do you see the election results?
First of all, I think there was no surprise, and because we've been watching TV programs about what happened, previous polls showing a similar trend, right? Because Lee Jae-myung had been leading, about more than 10%, previous polls, yeah.
Yes.
And then the exit poll by the media companies, and it's projected about 51%, and it's about the 11% difference. So it's about two-digit differences. So he had been maintaining the more than two-digit the lead for entire period. So I guess there's no surprise at all. And however, there's one of the issue was that whether they could have the conservative candidate consolidate together so that make it really the one conservative candidate. But it didn't work out, and then it could have a factor. But if you compare, actually looking at the actual exit poll numbers, that maybe it wouldn't really change much after all, because that you combine both, the projected number is about 40, I think it's 46%, which is still quite below the Lee Jae-myung's the rate. So I think it was a big, I think from the beginning, because the PPP had a disadvantage because of the impeachment and then internal problems and many issues, so that it's very hard to play the game from the beginning. And then Lee Jae-myung in the DP side, they try to maintaining their risk, minimize their risk at the end. So I think that's kind of what happened, that they would keep the lead, and that it happened that way as they planned it.
No surprise, you're saying. And it's another leadership change from a conservative government to a liberal one in 3 years. What were the possible factors that led to this result?
Once again, I guess there was maybe perhaps 3 major factors. First of all, it was the December 3rd martial declaration, and then after happened the impeachment process. And there was even throughout the impeachment process, there was so much political issues came out from the both sides and different voices on the same matter. So that's really disappointed the public, and general public still have the anger against what happened in December 3rd, and even make them more angrier is that what really did and PPP, what they did, and they actually did really do a lot of unbelievable things. They even attempt to replace their candidate with Han Duck-soo, who's not even a member of their party. So there was kind of a lot of things happens. Also, the other problem is that once Moon-soo was selected as candidate, he failed to keep distance from the Yoon Suk-yeol, his former boss, since he appointed him as the Minister of the Employment and Labor. I think that's kind of connection really keep him from going forward. And that was an issue. Also, I think the last minute problem was that the internal problem within the PPP. They tried to replace their leader. Basically the candidate with the outsider, which was Han Duck-soo, former prime minister. I think that really disappointed even not only the general public, also the PPP members, because that's really disappointing. And then what happened was, as you know, that the PPP members, overturned whatever the leadership meeting decided. I think it's a very big impact on the public, not only the PPP member inside, even the outside general public look at how PPP, and the general public looking at the PPP. That's I think it's kind of a very big message against PPP.
Now, I want to point out that the gap looks narrower this time when compared to the result in 2017 that was also when former President Park Geun-hye was impeached. So what's your take on that?
That's very interesting, because I guess that comparing to Park Geun-hye's situation, Korea as a society become much more polarized. So I guess in a way that happened was that the people get much more polarized for maybe due to many reasons, and the way they presented themselves about political view, and is less willing to compromise with other people with different views. I think that's a really social problem and social issue in Korea, and then try to be, live in harmony, to try to understand, talk with people who have different views. I think there's things we need to do it, and then perhaps the next president should have the Lee Jae-myung, if he could, he should have do something, to improve the, social relations issues, right?
And Mr. Ahn, Lee delivered his victory speech in Yeouido just moments ago. He covered a host of issues, from social unity, the economy, to North Korea issues, to name a few. And he seemed to have chosen his words carefully. What did you make of his speech?
Well, I guess I was listening to his speech, on the way back to the studio. But it was very interesting because as I expected, he just focused on the unity, national unity. And he talked basically about the unity, and then tried to be, president for all the Koreans, including those who not have, vote for him. So that's a good start. And since if it happens, if we can get more than half of the percentage, I think that's a good sign. And plus, and then his party, DP is controlling the National Assembly, and they have good, strong public support. I think that's a good starting point for him as a new president. Yeah.
And the new government will be launched right away when the sun goes up. Without a transition team. What should we expect from the new president on day one?
I guess first thing we have to finish up the appointment process, right? I mean, we have new people to work, so it will take some time and some of the positions have to go to the National Assembly. So approval, consent process, that will take time. And my concern is that really the urgent issue is the bilateral trade with the negotiation with the U.S. government. I think that's really urgent because
that's really imminent, right?
There's things that I guess you need to really appoint that Minister of Foreign Affairs right away and trade issues. And that's a really big issue because really we are export-oriented country and really exporting a lot of portion to the U.S. market, so that's a really big issue. U.S. is not only the trading partner; it's very strong, our closest and most important, military ally and security issues also. So that's the really concern that we really focus on. Then the cabinet member appointment, also focusing on the trading issue and the bilateral relations with the U.S. government. I think that's really critical and urgent issue.
And Lawyer On, you mentioned this a little earlier, but now Lee Jae-myung has looks to have won the presidential election, and the Democratic Party of Korea holds a majority in parliament. So what does this mean for the new administration?
I think that's a very interesting point because that the December 3rd Marshall Declaration is what the former President Yoon said was that National Assembly is going something wrong direction. That's what he's arguing. So from that perspective, maybe that's good for the new president, since that his political party is controlling the National Assembly. And then in the beginning, I'm sure he tried to pass many bills, including AI bill. And so they will be focusing on very busy with drafting new bills and try to be enacted, many of them, especially the economic, issues, a lot of issues. So, and plus I think that the top agenda for the campaign agenda was that the AI law, which actually the other countries like the European Union already passed a few years ago, and that's really quite behind. Not only the legal framework, we are quite behind in terms of AI technology. So I guess that Lee Jae-myung if he become a new president, will focus on AI bill, and I think that's the things that happens. And because there will be really huge bill using a lot of government sources and the financial support as well.
So perhaps more cooperation. He's expecting some cooperation from the National Assembly. And this year's estimated voter turnout stood at almost 80%. That's really high, that's the highest in nearly 3 decades. So what does this number tell about voter engagement?
Yeah, it's very interesting because that is exactly 79.4%, and it's about the highest within the 28 years. But it's interesting because if you go back to 28 years, there was like YS, DJ era. This is really that, and right after the military, dictators, right? So that's a really high rate, and I guess that there's a growing public anger against not only the Yoon Suk-yeol for impeached president, also the PPP, how they handle the situation. And I think the big difference, big difference from the Park Geun-hye case. In that time, the Conservative Party kind of dump her, right? Basically, more like they just going after her. So that somehow they save their party, the identity, but I think that there will be big political change to PPP after the election, because that is not only I don't think it's really Kim Moon-soo's failure, it's more like PPP's failure. It's the systematic problem rather than his individual candidate problem, I think. So that will be a kind of a big political structural change after the election is over, right? I think that's what happened. And then the public were looking at how the PPP changed, their sum and how much, and there will be higher expectation from the before that, Park Geun-hye situation. So.
And Mr. An, before we let you go, the country witnessed the short-lived martial law some 6 months ago, and now we're having a snap election. So how do you assess the system of Korea's democracy and its resiliency?
A very interesting question, because I ask myself the same question. I think the Korean political structure has been changed gradually. For example, if we look at the Roh Moo-yeon and Lee Jae-myung case, in both candidates, it's very interesting because they are all from southeast, but they become leader, and then the candidate, President Kim from the southeast, right? So it's such combination is kind of bring a new trend in that how Korean political party developed, because that it used to be very heavily focused on regionalism. If you're a Southeast political party, someone has to be Southwest, like DJ, or if you're from Southeast, you have like a YS, you have to be the Southeast person. But now it's combination, and it seems very effective sometimes. But however, the PPP situation, PPP is still, and I think they're really dreaming about the regionalism. They're using it because problem is what happens. See that PPP doesn't seem like a national party anymore. It seems like the one Southeast political party because they're the winning rate. I mean, they're the voter turnout, anything happened in recent elections. That's really bad news for the PPP because I don't know how much people will support except the Southeast area in the next election. That's very serious unless they really change their structure and the system dramatically in the near future.
Attorney An Jun-sung, thank you for your insights.
요새 쉬었음 청년들이 굉장히 사회 문제로 대두되고 있는데 그 부분에 대한 해결이 가장 먼저 이루어져야 될 거라고 생각합니다.
저는 일단 각자가 말하는 정책에 대해서 집중하고 그래도 5년이라는 길다면 길고 짧다면 짧은 시간 동안 본인이 말하는 거에 대해서 잘 지켜가는 정부가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
기후와 관련해서는 조금 더 재생에너지나 뭐 이런 쪽에 조금 더 관심을 가지고 탈원전 정책에 조금 더 관심을 가지는 그런 정부가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
대학 서열화를 끝내고 그리고 사교육 시장을 줄이는 방향으로 좀 더 평등한 교육 정책을 위해서 애써야 되지 않나 이런 생각을 갖고 있습니다.
누가 돼도 상관은 없지만 그 공약을 하셨다면 하나라도 지켜주는 게 있었으면 좋겠어요. 아무래도 자영업 쪽에 있다 보니까 자영업자 쪽에 조금 더 신경을 써줬으면 좋을 것 같아요.
일단 기본적으로 주거 안정이 좀 제대로 이루어졌으면 하는 바람입니다.
없는 분들을 좀 생각해서 서로가 나눔의 실천을 했으면 좋겠어요.
아무래도 제가 이제 30대 초반이다 보니까 이제 결혼 이런 관련해서 정책들이 물론 지금도 잘 나오고 있는 것 같은데 아직도 청년들이 좀 결혼을 준비하는 데 있어서 어려움을 겪고 있기 때문에 결혼 문제에 있어서 좀 이제 정책 같은 것도 좀 더 많이 완화되고 대출 규제라든지 이런 것들 많이 좀 풀어졌으면 좋겠다라는 생각이 있습니다.
That wraps up our coverage at this hour. Thank you for watching. More news coming up at 4 a.m. Korea time.